Thank you for joining us this early for the Red Hat Ansible Way Series webinar, where we will be covering the security and compliance topic today. So I'm Eva, the host for the webinar. So there's some housekeeping notes before we start. Next slide, please. Please update your full name and your company in the blue jeans. Type in your question in the Q&A chat if you have any, and the speakers will answer that at the end of the session. So of course, we would like to get or hear feedback on how we did throughout the session. So a link will be given at the end of today's session. So without further ado, please, I'll get Sean to start the webinar. Over to you, Sean.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Just a little bit of a AV check. Can you see my screen? All could see my screen, right? And video, hear me all right? Good. Okay, so Eva, if you're not seeing, please let me know.
We can see your camera. We haven't seen your slide yet.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me just. The video is on. I'm just always bad at this. Sorry, guys. Okay, can you see my screen now? I hope you can see my screen. It should be loading. Am I good?
Loading. Yeah, all good. All good.
Okay. Hi. Very good morning to everyone. Thank you for your time. Honestly, in these digital times, I think everybody's time is very short-lived. We have very short attention span, and the fact that you attend this, we, on behalf of the Red Hat team, really want to thank you. Automation is a topic that is often comes up as a Red Hatter, and something that is coming up a lot more with our customers, right? In fact, when it comes to things digital, transformation, innovation, right? We talk about building software factories. We talk about building a next generation or modern application, building kind of a infrastructure or even a innovation engine for a business, right? The topic of automation almost always comes in, right? And we see it so much, right? So what is it really about? Okay, and I think that's where today we're trying to answer. We're trying to break it down such that you guys could actually see it more in the way it could actually apply to you, right? My name is Sean, and I'm the Cloud Solutions Business Development for Red Hat here based in ASEAN. I have seen, in the region in the past 2-3 years, how we have really, as a region, as companies and organizations, embrace automation, right? From personal automation all the way to doing this organization-wide. And I see some very beautiful stories, and I hope we can share with you along this journey, such that you could hopefully build your own, right? So let's begin, right? Automation is everywhere, right? Not just limited to your offices or your organization, right? We talk about industrial revolution. We talk about 4.0 now, okay, where we go into modern times, right? We talk about automation. I mean, in your lives today, probably what's more relevant to you, where you hear about automation are things like Tesla, right? The building of a full car is automated, and that just doesn't just finish in the factory, right? When you get out of the factory, we do more automation, right? Self-driving cars, right? With sensors, right? Cars equipped with hundreds of sensors, or even thousands of sensors to be able to track everything that's going on everywhere in their cars, right? This picture is something that I'd like to use to sum up automation a lot, right? You really are trying to have automation do most of the mundane tasks that you want to do, that you have to do otherwise, such that you can focus on important things, right? Okay. In the case of this lady, she's obviously looking at her either that's her shopping or her recipe for cooking, right? But that's the whole point, right? Automation exists such that we can actually focus on the things that we want, right? Be it an organization or individual people, and it's everywhere in today's life. When digital dramatically scales up the amount of devices, the amount of interfaces that we actually have to come into, right? Concepts like 360-degree customer view, omni-channel presence in terms of actually taking care of customers. Right? All these are things that comes up more and more, and requires us as IT practitioners to actually deal with it, in a more, should I say, systematic approach. Right. As if that is not enough to convince you, okay, here are some stats, right? Okay, automation is essential. We have, to work together at IDC. We went out to actually talk to a lot of customers, right? And this is what they come back to us with. 86% tells us that automation is either critical or very important to their future cloud strategy. Okay, they envision that as they expand their IT more and more, and how IT nowadays is actually the driver for business. Automating and standardizing the way things are done are very, very important, right? 79% of IT organizations will need to deploy new management and automation software, right? One of the really cool cases that we did last year was that we helped a rather large energy provider in the region. What we did for them was that because they have their own on-premises cloud, they also have their own public clouds, okay, many different platforms. What we did was that we used automation to sort of help them standardize the provisioning for everything. And then because they are all standardized, the configurations are all the same, then we proceed to be able to do things like day two patching, things like, configuration management for them all the same, right? And it becomes a very much more efficient organization, right? So yeah, this is what we do with automation, right? We make life a lot easier. And one of the things that I always hear people saying, and or hear customers coming to me with that, is they feel that their automation cases are not complex enough. Fear not, actually. Most of the times, and I can tell you through later, most of the use cases we visit, right? Automation is meant to take the simplest cases that you do on an everyday basis, but it just takes up so much of your time that you actually use automation to sort of eliminate it, such that you can focus on other things that are more complex, ironically, right? So yeah, that's something that you could really think about for you, right? Okay. One of the things that I'd like to share with you is that this is Gartner technology trends from last year. I'm a huge follower of what they do, right? Okay. When they look at what IT technology trends that we're looking this year, amongst the pandemic, how it's changed the world totally, right? Okay. Three key areas that they look at are people centricity, technology that really looks at people, because now that we are all what we call the homebound web surfers, right? A lot of technology is about building people's presence here, right? Location independence. We no longer congregate in offices to work. Okay, a cafe, a bar. Even our own home. In my case, my son's bedroom could be a location for work or talking to communication to customers and colleagues and like. Resilient delivery. Okay, the fact that we are all so dissipated, all over the place today, in working independently in different locations, means that when we deliver things, right, be it our services or even our conversations such as this, right, needs to be very resilient, right? And that's where hyper automation comes in, right? This is an area that is actually recognized by Gartner as to do all these things to scale and in that manner, right? Hyper automation, or rather the automation of everything possible in the organization, right, is an area to look at, right? It reinforces delivery. If you're trying to do something and it fails midway, you should be able to, very much like a DR, right, be able to redo it quickly, such that you bring services to your customers quickly, right? Underlying that, okay, when organizations take on more and more technology trends, especially with today's digital transformation era, there are very, very much different sources of technology to consider. How do you sort of standardize whatever you're taking in, such that it actually is easier for your organization to consume? Take the example with the energy provider that I shared previously, right? Because they use 2 or 3 public cloud providers. On-prem, they also have 2 or 3 virtualization technologies. That's like added together, that's 5 or 6 different platforms that they need to do. And as they take in more and more, there's more and more platforms. Every platform means something, or rather a lot of maintenance for your operation teams, right? And not to mention that, the additional applications and codes that you develop on top of them. And this all, added up becomes a massive technical debt that you need to actually look at, or a lot of you could actually begin to look at to see how you could minimize this, right? And of course, to support new initiatives, right? All these things happen. I have had customers who enable their software pipeline now in barely 6 months, right? They can come to me and tell me, now it's so much easier for me to deliver services and functions via code because I have my software pipeline properly set up. And it's very, very easy for me to transform what's management or business line ideas into something for our applications. And beautiful, that's how we help people, right? So yes, a lot of you might be thinking, why do we do automation? Why do we do automation? I already have automation today. This is very simplistically, in our view, how automation works, right? The automation that a lot of us may be used to is departmental, or what I call individual automation. We use automation to do singular tasks like, patching the servers I'm taking care of, or the network devices I'm taking care of, right? What we are looking at really is beyond that. We do IT orchestration, different point tools, right? There was a bank that we walked into just 2 years ago with Anthony, right? There was the bank, the head of the department told me, I have 30 different point technologies to actually to take care of. All claims different forms of app automation. In the end, Ansible was sort of looked at very closely because it is the one that seeks to help me orchestrate so that I don't have to be the person behind all the 30 plus automation. I use your tool to help me, coordinate all the different automation tools. And that's what we do. We actually, create workflows that actually are meaningful, that actually helps you power your business forward, right? And of course, we do, all this is done to actually enable the digital transformation, a lot of things that we talk about. So many customers we go to, we talk to them, we talk about creating software pipelines and whatnot. Then they realize that their operations is not automated enough for them to move forward. So that's another thing that we do. And obviously, when all this is done properly, it actually supports business transformation. That is how your executives, their innovation, about being able to execute quickly, being able to react to market. This is where all these things come in. All right. So yeah, in view of all this, over here at Red Hat, we actually look at the Ansible Way Series based on our collective experiences across the region, conversation with our customers. We look at 6 common ways of automation that actually brings to people a lot of success very quickly, something very productive, right? So very quickly, server provisioning and management. This is where it actually helps people with day-to-day management of all the servers in their environment. Okay, from provisioning it all the way to day-to operations, like for example patching it, ensuring the configuration works. Okay, this is an end-to-end way of looking at server provisioning or making changes very quickly. So that's one way of doing. Security and compliance. Okay, that looks at overall posture of the organization. Is what we're going to be talking about today. That's something that we actually help a lot of customers as. One of the simplest cases in the region was that we had a rather large organization, 5,000 servers, came to us and say, you know what, what's my problem? I want all my servers to be CIS compliant. Okay, guess what? We actually created an automation pipe for them to look through all these servers regularly and be able to actually make changes, whenever the CIS updates. Something to do. Integrating with common IT tools, things like ITSM, ServiceNow and whatnot. So these are some very, very common things that we do because we can do the automation well, but they govern the corporate workflows, right? Merge with them. DevOps, software, CI/CD. So many customers come to us, right? We want to do, DevOps. We want to create software pipelines, but we need to put everything together. We need to provision servers very quickly. The ops portion needs to happen very quickly. That's where we come from, right? Hybrid multi-cloud deployment. A lot of people are thinking multi-clouds. A lot of people are also having a headache because multi-cloud, multi-platform, multiple standards of technology. How do we standardize the common denominators such that every time my guys get or provision servers or do something, right, it's always the same thing that they get, and I'm able to control everything, and I'm able to turn around everything very quickly. Right. And lastly, of course, network automation. Those of us who understand or rather have dealt with it, small little switches, devices across the whole organization, keeping that all up to date, keeping all them all with the same configuration can be really a challenge, right? So look out for us more in our Ansible Way series. It's going to be a series of webinars such as this that actually looks at each of them and then deep dives each of them with our experts in Red Hat. Okay, and that's what we really hope to actually give it to you. You'll come up with a lot of questions today. Please feel free to just come in and actually talk to us about it. Okay, drop us a question, drop us a note, and go for it. Right. With that, let me just pass the mic over to Anthony, so as to speak, so that he can actually dive into the topic itself. Anthony, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Sean, right, for going through all this information. I'm going to share my screen now, right? Sean, you want to stop sharing? Yeah. Thanks. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. Thanks. Right. So very good morning to everyone, right? So this is the first series of our Ansible Way series, right? So we will be focusing on the security and compliance for this particular webinar that we are running today, right? So mainly we are trying to see how security automation can help to achieve a more secure organization. We are going to provide a very quick overview for the next 30 minutes. We will leave about 10 minutes or so for Q&A, right? So let's begin. Right, so as we all know, right, security attacks are continuously evolving, right? To name a few, you have things like meltdown, Spectre, for instance, like vulnerabilities in modern processors, leaking passwords and sensitive data, right? And there's really no such thing as 100% security, right? We cannot really predict the future, right? We only have a certain number of hours a day, right? There's limited resources. The teams can only work on so many things in a particular number of hours, right? We cannot really fix everything as well, and sometimes we kind of need to make a risk decision because of that. So it's kind of important, right, to understand the threat model, right, and implement a preventive and responsive measures, right, in order to manage the risk. And hence, it's important to have a consistent automation strategy as a result. So what are some of the key lessons from recent breaches, right? You can see that, 2018 NSA, right? 2020, we talk about 99% of the vulnerabilities will continue to be the ones which is known by the security and IT professionals, right, at the time of the incident. Recently we saw SolarWinds, right, Microsoft, right, different things going on. So we kind of know that, this kind of stuff will always continue on, and hence we want to try to be able to manage all these things easier and better using automation, right? And today we are talking about hybrid cloud. We are talking about multi-cloud. We are talking about containerization, right? So in the world of containers and hybrid cloud, the security challenge is actually not getting easier. If you look at some of the statistics that we have, right, you can see that 65% reported an increased severity of attacks, right? And what are the portion of alerts coming in that the average security team actually examines per day? It's as low as just 5%, right? So what happens to the other 95%, right? And again, a lot of people are saying, right, 57% saying that the time to resolve an incident has also grown over time, right? So these are some of the challenges that we will see as we progress on, right? So because of the complexities and more things that's happening across the world, more complex technologies and platforms and integrations that has to be done with different portions. So what are some of the steps, right, that we can take to tackle the security issues in this new world of containers and hybrid clouds? So what we need, right, really is to have a consistent automation strategy, right, for infrastructure operations, right, application layer, right, as well as what we call as the security operations center. So today we are not going to touch too much on the application piece, because for the DevSecOps portion, right, we have another series in the webinar whereby we will focus more on the DevSecOps portion for the applications. Right, so we are going to look more at the infrastructure operations and security operations center for today, right? So you can see over here that when we say that we want to do automation for improved security and compliance, we are really looking at how we can bake security into Dev and Ops. But we talk a lot about DevOps these days. We should also include and consider security, right? Even before we try and do anything, right? So that's kind of the main idea that we will go into, right? And it will be discussed further in another webinar series. Right, so we want to look at how infrastructure, security, compliance, right, can be treated as code. It should be repeatable, right, shareable, and we should be able to verify, right? And how we can do things like continuous monitoring and automated controlled remediations, right? This will help us to improve the security and compliance that we have within the organization. So at cloud scale, right, we really have no choice but to automate, right? So many things are going on, right? If you want to do manual monitoring and management, it's really not going to be possible, right? As we can see from Forrester. So since we say, right, the bad guys are using automation, right, the hackers and whatnot. So what we should be doing is really to fight fire with fire, right? So we should try to automate anything possible that we have, right, to reduce the human error that's associated with the different breaches that we are seeing in recent times. So we try to see how Ansible, right, as a common language as well as the Red Hat Ansible Automation platform can be the platform that will help you to automate the security and compliance that spins across and cuts across application security, operations, as well as infrastructure. So if you were to look at it in baby steps, right, we look at different things, right, like vulnerability and compliance scanning, right, the host hardening, right, enforcing automated compliance, right, and the automated patching of hosts using tools like Ansible, right. Then we look at really, right, automation and analytics are the key to effective security and compliance. In order to achieve end-to-end, security automated, compliance automated, we want to make sure that we also include things like analytics inside as well to help us. And that's where the Red Hat Insights can actually come in to help, right, which we will kind of cover a bit as well as we move on. So the open hybrid cloud, right, is really the Red Hat recommended strategy for architecting, developing, and operating a hybrid mix of applications, right? It will basically be covering different areas such as the development tools, right, the OS, application, data platforms, and the management and automation systems, right? So we will be mainly covering the automation and management systems in this particular series. So I'm going to go through very quickly. I know that a lot of you guys are probably familiar with Ansible. I know there are some who are not that familiar, right? So I'm just going to go through on a high level what exactly Ansible is, right? So when we talk about Ansible automation, we often say that it is simple, agentless, and extensible, right? Simple because we are using basically YAML, which is a form of markup language to write our playbooks and automation. You don't really have to go and learn programming language like Python, Ruby, PowerShell, or something else, right, in order to be able to do that automation. We have a lot of modules available today that you can just use it, and you just have to write the playbooks in YAML, and you will be able to perform automation from that point onwards. Agentless, right? We don't really require you to install any agents on the target host that you are trying to manage. You can use OpenSSH, you can use REST API, right? You can use a Windows Remote Management Protocol to manage your Windows target, netconf to manage your Juniper switches, routers, for instance, right? So with that, it's actually very easy for Ansible to manage a different kind of, different platforms or different target nodes. Extensible. The modules that you will see today in Ansible, those are usually written either in Python or in PowerShell. PowerShell for Windows systems, and for Linux, Unix, the network equipment, most of those things are written in Python. right? So these are skill sets that you can quite easily find in the market today. It's very easy for you to get someone to help out if we do not have those modules out of the box. We have more than 4,000 modules today, and it's increasing over time, right? So if none of those fits your requirement, or that if you need something that is custom, which some of our customers do, right? They do need custom modules, then it's quite easy to find, or even for yourself to write something that will fit your custom needs. So some of the statistics that you will see today, right? We have more than 2,500 Ansible Automation customers across the world, more than 4 million systems under management, and more than 2 million downloads a month, right? So more than 4,000 integrations that you will see as well. Those are the modules that I'm referring to earlier. If you look at the Forrester Wave report, we are again named as the leader, right, for the second consecutive year, right? So you can see over here that we received the highest possible score in the criteria such as deployment functionality, right, product vision, the partner ecosystem, which I will show you later on, some of the partners that we have, right? The community support, the planned product enhancements, etc. You can see over here that Microsoft will be more like the VRA, the VMware will be like the VRA. The Microsoft will be SCCM, right? The VMware will be the VRA, right? So those are the things that we are kind of aligned with as well, which is common in the industry today, right? So you can see that Red Hat solution, right, is a good fit for customers who wants holistic automation platform that can integrate with a wide array of vendors infrastructure, right? These are some of the partners that we have and certified content modules that is available as well. We have a very robust ecosystem, right? You can see over here that all these are the major brands and vendors that you will see out there in the market today, and this list is continuing to increase over time, right? It's just part of the whole list that you will see, right? Some of the common integrations, right? You will see today that our customers are integrating Ansible, right, with CyberArk, ServiceNow, for instance, right? In the storage space, you have things like NetApp, right? EMC, right? Then in the network domain, right, we cover a wide range of different networking products, right? So of course you will see the Cisco, the F5, the NetScalers, Infoblox, Palo Alto, and different ones, right? Then OS, right? Windows, Linux, AIX. More recently, even AS400, right? It's also covered by Ansible, the IBM I series, IBM Z, right? The mainframe as well. Then over here, these are the different cloud platforms, right, that we cover. You can see over here that all the major cloud providers we have support, right? And also for virtualization platforms such as VMware, right? The vCenter integration is also very good when it comes to Ansible, and we do have certified content around that as well. Right, so those are some of the common things that we see today for our different customers across this region, and these are basically the things that they are using, and we have very good integration and use case around that. So some of the key concepts, right? We are declarative, right? We favor declaring the final state so that you will eventually reach where you are or where you want it to be, right? A simple example could be something over here, right? What we wanted to do is we want to install and start the firewall on the web host, which you can see over here that these are the two hosts that falls under the web group, right? Then we wanted to make sure that the firewall package is present. So we will make sure that, we use the YARN module, we state that firewall D, and we write that the state is latest. Right, so in this way, we will be able to rerun this thing, let's say 5 or 10 times, and it always gives you the same result. Right? We define the final state. Over here, we say the latest, right? So if it is not at the latest state, it will make sure that the package is moved to the latest state. If it is already at the latest state, Ansible is not going to do anything. If it is not installed now, Ansible will make sure that it is installed and the system is going to be at that particular state that we want it to be in. Right. So the playbooks, the modules that we have will make sure that the whole system is in the desired final state. We call that idempotency. Right. You can keep on running this thing multiple times and you always get the same kind of results. So we have the Ansible Tower that can do role-based control. You have the REST API, dynamic inventories allowing us to connect to the cloud, the public clouds like AWS, the vCenter, for instance, right, to pull the information of all the assets. we have multiple steps, workflow, that can be done, right? Automation Hub itself is something that is relatively new, right? So we can do a private automation hub whereby you can put these days we are moving from rows to collections, right? So collections will be things that you can put inside the automation hub that can be consumed internally within the organization, right? So automation hub itself is a bit similar to the Ansible Galaxy that some of you may be familiar with, right? So it basically provides you an avenue, right, to store all this information, be it on-prem or being consumed as a SaaS service in our cloud.redhat.com. So different things that can be done with Automation Hub. So these are just some of the key concepts that I just want to quickly go through, right? So the next part, right, we go back to where we were talking about previously. We talk about vulnerabilities, compliance scanning, remediations on host at scale, right, with Ansible Automation. So if you were to look at some of the compliance automation that we can do with OpenSCAP, right? So basically the Red Hat Security Scanner, right, is included within RHEL and Smart Management, right? So what it does is that we can basically have a validated and certified tool, right, that can help you to scan for the NIST certified SCAP protocol, right? We will be able to check out on the known vulnerabilities and security policies compliance scanning, right? There's also customizable content that you can do via the SCAP Workbench graphical interface. It kind of looks like this, right? You can see that with the scan, you get the results. It shows you the overall compliance score, right? What are the things that did not meet the conditions, right? It shows you whether things are good. Is it a pass or fail, right? You can issue severity highlights, calculated score, for instance. What are the other, information and remediation details that can be done for the things that did not pass, right? So over here, you can see that, this thing is actually a pass. It's basically saying something like we have set the permit root login to no, which is what we want it to be, right? So you get this, right, as part of the SCAP report, right? And the next thing that can help you, right, is actually the Red Hat Insights, which is already included within the RHEL subscriptions, right? So it helps you to check out the environment, right? It remediates against the findings, and you can actually make use of the Ansible playbooks that can be already generated beforehand, right, to fix any issues within the RHEL environment. And obviously, it can also identify risk beforehand with the analytics piece, right? So ultimately, what this will help you is to be able to identify the risk, right, for availability, performance, stability, and security, right? It basically helps you to also do proactive advice, right? You can identify the issues before it becomes a problem, right? Then there is this continuous assessment, and you can do remediations using Ansible playbooks that will come along with it, right? This is kind of how it looks like. You can actually create plans, right, that will have the playbooks that will help you to fix the problem that is found on the systems that you have. So ultimately, it solves the common issues via the Ansible automation, right? So, over here, you can do automating analysis, and it isn't just about CVEs. If you were to look at some of these things, right, it says that when a vulnerability is released, it's likely exploited in the next 40 to 60 days, right? But on average, it takes security team 100 to 120 days to fix the issues. So with Red Hat Insights, it actually helps you to be one step ahead, right? You will be able to figure out things even before it actually happens. And with the remediation playbooks, you can actually resolve the problems that you have today, right? And this whole suite is actually what we call as the smart management with satellite and insights. Just wanted to show you very quickly how it looks like. You can see over here that this is the Insights dashboard. It shows you how many incidents, what are the vulnerabilities over the last 90, 30, 7 days, right? The categories that this thing is in, right? The compliance, right? What are the remediations playbook that you can do? Over here, it shows you all the different recommendations, right, that you have as well. What are the things that you can do, right? So this is actually what Insights have. Right, so I just wanted to show you very quickly how it looks like if you were to use this, right? So let me just go back. The next thing that I wanted to do, right, is a very short demo, right? I wanted to show you the things related to the baseline scanning for Windows Server. I actually have something for RHEL as well, but I guess it makes more sense for us to show the Windows, since I guess everyone knows that RHEL, right? We can definitely do it without any issues. So let me just very quickly walk through this one, right? So you can see over here that we have a Windows server, right? We basically will be able to check on the environment, right? You have the accounts information over here, and that we wanted to change the registry key over here as well, right? To change it to another value. I have two servers, right? I wanted to show that we can actually do for multiple servers in the same time, and Ansible is capable of doing large number of servers without any issues, right? So these are the default settings that we have. We wanted to check on things relating to the registry key, for instance. So the things that we are going to do, right, is relating to the baseline that we set. So you can see over here that we have a hardening requirements YAML, whereby we specify all the values that we want the system to be in. And we use this as a baseline to go and fix the system's settings, right? So after which, Ansible is going to scan the entire system based on the baseline that we have set, and send us a report on what are the things that work or did not work. Right, so you can see that we are pointing to Git, we are using source code management, we have different inventories created for the different Windows servers that we have. We do things using the WinRM protocol to connect to the target. I'm using NTLM, right? You can use Kerberos, you can use CRAD SSP. And what can happen after that is that we will just run the scan, and it's going to target a particular section over here. We can define the sections that we want. We do a multi-select using the tower survey form, right? And what will happen after that is we will just run this thing through, and it's going to be able to just do the checks for you, right? Let me just skip. So when it is done, right, it sends you an email, right? And you basically get the results where you can see for yourself on what are the things that pass or fail against the expected settings and baseline, right? What are the current settings? What is the expected settings? What are the things that fail and pass? Right, so we can very easily get this information, right? Then the next thing that we can do, of course, right, is to go and fix it, right? So for instance, if you have this, the next thing that we can do is really to go and run the remediation, right, to resolve the issues with this particular system, right? So if you were to look at it, we have a compliance hardening playbook, right? This is a job template within the Ansible tower. We specify the sections again on the stuff that we want to fix, right? So it can be up to you to define what are the settings that you want to solve in this case, right? So once we let it run, let me just fast forward a bit. I know we are kind of running short of time. Ansible finished running, right? So the next thing that it does is that it actually goes and fixes all the problems for you, right? Then if you were to go and check the registry key as well, it's 5, and now it changes to 14, right? So it's able to fix all these settings within the environment for the servers for you as well, right? So, and we do it in parallel for large number of different servers. Within my lab, I only have 2 Windows machine, right? So the example that I'm showing is just with these 2. But you can imagine doing this for hundreds of Windows servers at the same time, right? We have that capabilities to do all those things. And of course, the next thing that we do, right, is to just to go and rerun the scan again, right? Just to check through and make sure that everything is going properly. Right, so when you rerun it, it will again send you that report, right? So we fast forward. And if you go back, right, you get a new email, right, from Ansible. And then you can see over here that it becomes all successful and everything is now validated, right? So this is just one way in which we can actually do this on Windows Target as well, right, using Ansible. right? So we can actually do quite a lot of things when it comes to all this kind of automation, right? So let me just very quickly go back to the stuff that we can do for automated patching of host systems at scale. So you can see over here that 75% of the CIO, right, are investing, right, to improve cyber risk mitigation, and hence automated patch management is critical as well. So we should really automate whenever possible. You can see over here that when you have full automation, you can have things like asset discovery and the software inventory, like your CMDB, right? The likes of ServiceNow, your BMC, all those are some of the asset discovery tools that you will see in the market today. Vulnerability assessment scanning, right? So we can have integration with the likes of Tenable Nexus, with Nextpost, Rapid7. Those are things that we can integrate with as well to trigger automated scanning, to try to remediate the issues after we find something, right? To do an auto patch deployment, for instance. And then we can do things that has the reporting piece after that. So what are some of the comments that we can see from, for instance, a global infrastructure provider, right? It says that Ansible is able to reduce the time required for regular patching by up to 75%, right? And you don't have to wake up every early morning just to try to resolve this problem. I am trying to see whether we have time, right? So I probably will skip this, right? It basically shows the RHEL 7 with the Red Hat satellite, right? I mean, I will share this later on, right? So that you can go and take a look at this video that we have in YouTube, right? So basically what it does is that it shows you how we can actually pull the asset inventory information, right, from what we have over here is vCenter, right? So I'm able to pull from vCenter the VMs that I want to patch. And what we do along the way is that we basically create a snapshot, right, before we do anything to this particular VM, because it's basically a machine that has critical applications running on top, and hence you want to do a pre-check, snapshot, followed by patch, and then we do another, things like post-check, right? So all those things can be done in an automated fashion by using Ansible, right? We will show this if we have time later on, but I think in view of the time, right, let's just go to the last piece before I open up for Q&A, right? I just wanted to have some time for you guys to ask questions. So if you were to look at the last piece, right, it really is around the security operations center with Ansible. So I'm not too sure whether you guys are aware, right? But basically what's going on these days is that Ansible has also branched into the security automation space, right? So in this particular space, we are looking at integration with, things like SIEMs, right? You can imagine it as being the IBM Curator, Splunk, right? We have IDS, IPS, the SNOT, right? Then the enterprise firewalls, which is things like your Checkpoint, your Palo Alto, your Fortinet, right? So we kind of look at how we can actually cover all these different areas and to be able to integrate and orchestrate across multiple classes of security solutions. Think of it as something similar to what we have been doing all this while when it comes to things like infrastructure, cloud, right? Storage, network, right? So we are doing something similar, but in the security space. So we look at how Ansible can basically provide modules, roles, and playbooks to support all these use cases across solutions. Some of the things are covered over here, right, are the areas that we have branched into, right? We are slowly expanding out, right? So the latest addition is really in the area of endpoint protection. Right? We have modules coming from Trend Micro and Symantec, right? It's going to help us to be able to also protect endpoint systems by being able to talk to the controllers, right? That is from these providers. PAM, right? I think with CyberArk, we have seen a lot of this thing, especially with some of our government customers, right? So that integration is there. The network firewall piece, right? These are some of the common brands, the IDS, IPS, and the SIEM, right? So what are some of the use cases that can be done over here? Investigation and enrichment when it comes to application behavior. Right? So for instance, if Splunk detects an anomaly, right, it can actually get more logs from SNOT or Checkpoint, right? Usually we know that we don't turn on debug tracing because the SIEM basically charges you based on the amount of logs that it has, right? So we can actually activate all these things only when needed, and this can be done with the help of Ansible, right? Then let's say we turn on more traces and whatnot, right? Then Snort can actually also be triggered by Ansible to implement a new rule to collect more information. And Checkpoint can also raises a level of logging, right? And then Splunk can consolidate all the information for triage, and if everything is good, we will restore the configurations and just say that, okay, everything is kind of normal, right? And all these things can be done in one automated flow. Right, this thing with threat hunting, right, we can help as well, right? So for instance, Cisco, the firepower, for instance, right, register a continuous rule violation. You can send alert to the IBM QRadar, whereby IBM QRadar can then, create an offense request for additional information to the Fortinet IPS. Right, so the IPS can then create a new rule, right, to try to investigate what is going on. We confirm that there is a misconfiguration that's going on, and we just want to make sure that the IP address is whitelist, right, in this case. Obviously, if there is something wrong, with the IP that's trying to do certain things, right, like a DDoS attack or what, we can always get the firewall to black hole the traffic that's coming in, right? So in this case, it will help to thwart the attack, right? This one is on incident response, right? If you have the scenario of SQL injection attack, what can you do, right? So in this case, we see that Checkpoint detects, right, SQL attack, it alerts injection attack, right? It alerts the IBM QRadar. IBM QRadar will validate, create the offense, and trigger the remediation, right? So then all these things again can all be done by perhaps adding a firewall rule, right, in Fortinet, FortiGateway. Right? We can do all those things using Ansible, right? Then it will just be able to resolve the attack in a much faster fashion because we have a single platform that talks across all these systems rather than having to wait for the security analysts to talk to different people along the way and things get slowed down, right? Rather than doing that, we have a system sits in the middle, talk to all these security products and resolve the problem, right? So that's what we can do. So how do we get there, right? So we want to reconsider automation as a strategic defense, right? It's not just another tactical tool, right? Different things that you want to look at, discover what automation tools is most commonly used in your organization and why are we using those things, right? We want to assess the selected tools capabilities, but you want to include automation software, right? Perhaps as a target for your penetration testing. Right, evaluation of the feasibility of centralized automation, right, which really is what we are trying to say, right, is good, right? And yeah, those are just some ways, right? So this is actually being used in production today, right? So you can see that the Italian army, right, the C4 command, right, they are using Ansible automation that connects to all these different security products, right? The Fortinet, the Cisco, the IBM QRadar, the PAM, right? So, yep, and this is how you can get started. That's kind of like my last slide, right? So, can you help us to take a quick poll, Eva? I think it's time for the poll, right?